Pune as an assistant professor from January 2020. She taught different courses like BSc, Principle of Economics, Principle of Economics, Microeconomics, Intermediate Microeconomics, and for MSc program, Microeconomics 1. She is program coordinator of BSc Economics program. She worked as the placement coordinator for the BSc program. She is also work as visiting faculty for delivering lectures on different concepts from economics. She completed her BSc in economics from Symbiosis School of Economics, Pune, MA in economics from Ferguson College. She qualified NET exam in the month of December 2014. She also completed her PhD in economics from Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Pune. She published different types of research papers at national and international level. She also worked on different projects as a project mentor, project coordinator. She also give the consultancy or work as an advisory for landscaping studies, assessing the impact of COVIDs, etc. I am requesting on behalf of Professor Ramkrishna More College, Department of Commerce, please deliver the session. Saylee Madam, please continue.
Thank you. Thank you for the welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Can I just very quickly know how many do we have on the call over here right now? About, so how many students do we have here? 30, 32, 33?
Registered 76, they will
Okay.
join afterwards.
Oh, okay,
At
fine.
present,
Okay.
there are 36 students.
Okay, okay, okay. But we're expecting around 70 students. All right.
70. Huh?
Wow. Okay, okay, good. And very quickly, ma'am, if I may know, this is the first time they're doing this methodology coursework for everyone.
Yes.
Okay, so they're all from the same batch.
Yeah, commerce and management background students.
Okay, okay, great. All right, fine. So before we start off, and I will need a few responses over here, so it will be good if you can, unmute yourselves and say something. And also for those of you, if it is possible, if you could please turn on your cameras, this becomes very impersonal otherwise. So if I could see a few faces, that would be nice. Now, I understand you all are currently doing a research methodology workshop as well. So you have done other quantitative techniques? Yes, no. Have you had other sessions of research methodology before this?
Yes.
All right. Okay, great. And can someone quickly summarize as to what you all have done in the quantitative techniques part? Because qualitative is what I will be talking about. But in quantitative, what is your understanding of quantitative techniques? What have you um, assimilated so far?
Yes, ma'am.
If someone could, tell me
Yes,
a
ma'am.
little bit more. Huh. Yes, Sonali, you trying to say something? Okay, fine. ठीक है. Before we move on very quickly, would everyone prefer this session be mixed with maybe like mode of language? Would you prefer a Marathi English mix or a Hindi English mix, or is everyone comfortable with a complete English delivery? Here, you all will have to say something.
Yes, we will be comfortable.
So I can just continue in English as well. Okay, great.
Yes, yes.
All right. ठीक है. But if
Ma'am,
anyone
Marathi
has
and English, both language.
Okay, ठीक है, fine. Okay, so
Thank you so much.
mix करो, yeah, mix करो, not a problem. ठीक है. Okay. Um, Now I can see some of you are giving answers in the chat, so I'll keep the chat open as well. So Sonali says it's something which we can measure. Correct. Quantitative in general would be something that you can measure. So then, in your understanding, Sonali, if you could help me out, what would qualitative research entail? What would be some or where maybe can you think of where you would have to undertake a qualitative research? Just vaguely.
Performance, for example, performance,
Performance of.
satisfaction, satisfaction.
Right. Because performance again is tricky, right? Performance can also be
Yes.
measured in quantums, in numbers. Correct?
Yes.
Because if I give you a percentage or a grade, or you stood first in class, you stood 10th in class, you got 30%, then that's again quantitative, right? But
Okay.
qualitative, like you said, could be so how many of you I don't know if you've gone to Pantaloons or any other mall, when you go for shopping, at the end they ask you for this feedback, and they have
Yes.
these smileys over there.
Yes.
है ना? So rather than asking you to give a number from, let's say, 1 to 10, okay, who can tell me what is the problem if in general, okay, by and large. Now you have to you understand research methodology, so you know that this is the larger population that we are talking about. If you give somebody a scale from 1 to 10, okay, by a scale I mean there is a measure from 1 to 10, measure your satisfaction, like tell me how your shopping experience was. Largely, by a majority, what do you think is the number that people would put? Instinctively, what do you put?
7.
7, yeah. Otherwise, usually people end up with a median or the average. People just go with a 5, correct? Okay, because you don't want to say anything too bad, you don't want to say anything too good. So it's the
Yes.
safe thing to do. 10, you're a very nice person, Sonali. Very few people say 10. Okay. So the thing, and therefore, some people then to measure maybe satisfaction of a consumer might want to give something like where you have those smileys, right? Because there you are not associating a number, it's more of the feeling. You're trying to capture how you felt, how your entire experience was in the mall or in that particular shop. And so you can give, like an upward smile, you can give a downward smile, you can give like a flat expression, all those emojis that are there, right? Okay. So now very quickly, I will share my screen before we move on. Um, can I will share not a Chrome tab, but why can I not? Yeah, a window. Wait, just a minute. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, okay. Can everyone? Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yeah. All right. All right. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Now, very quickly, the first thing that we're going to do is because we have sort of understood the difference between where you might think about a qualitative versus a quantitative analysis. So, for example, if I tell you that I want you to undertake a study to measure what are the problems or what are the difficulties faced by old people who have to live alone. Okay, this is a typical societal problem, right? More often in urban areas, you find that you have, grandparents or people who are above the age of 80, close to 90, but maybe, their children don't live in the same city, they don't live in the same country, right? Maybe they live abroad and they're living alone. And if I were to tell you that you have to undertake a study, it's a social science study to analyze or to understand what could be the problems that such people living alone can face. So what all do you think, how would you go about it? What comes to mind?
Age,
Sorry?
age, age of
Age.
people.
Correct. You need to know the age of people. Correct. But how would you do that study?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello.
I think we can take a survey or interview of few people.
Correct. correct? You can take an
through
interview.
which we can no, if the number now the number since it is large, so interview will be little bit difficult. So we can continue with the survey method, wherein
Hmm.
we can take the data and then analyze further, like what are the reasons for doing this.
But what kind of data will you get? Who collects this data?
To
Who collects?
questionnaire.
Correct. Ganesh, you're right. So you probably have to circulate a questionnaire, okay? And the respondents will fill it up, and you can ask a series of questions about, how they live, why they're living alone, what are the problems they face, okay? And you will get these kind of answers. And then the analysis that you can do is to say, okay, so many percent of the responders cited this to be the primary reason of living alone, or cited XYZ to be the greatest challenges that they face, so on and so forth. Okay. All of this, however, I mean, is there something anybody else would want to do? Else I'll proceed. Any other answers, any other ideas on how you would undertake this kind of a study? Anyone else? So everyone would more or less conduct a questionnaire with some sort of a binary yes, no kind of answers, or you give multiple options and they will select something, correct? Because that's the kind of a questionnaire you will have to build, correct? Because if you're circulating a questionnaire, you can't have a descriptive format. There's no place for that. Yeah? Everyone agrees with me?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah? Okay, fine. Great, great. Now, what if I were to tell you that there are actually a lot of non-verbal cues? Everyone understands what a non-verbal cue is? Anyone who wants me to explain that a little bit more? What do you mean by a non-verbal cue? No? Okay, everyone understands? Okay. So you can have a lot of non-verbal cues which are completely missed in circulating a questionnaire, because you will never interact with your respondent. You will never see them. You won't be able to maybe gather information from their surroundings, from how it is that they're expressing themselves, so on and so forth. So very quickly, I'm going to play a video. I won't even play the whole thing, and I'll put the subtitles on. Primarily, just tell me if you can see it. Let me share the full screen. Can you see the full screen, everyone? 1 minute. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it full screen?
No,
No,
it's
ma'am.
not full screen.
No, na? Ha, that's what. 1 minute, 1 minute. Kya ho gaya? Arre, why is this? Okay, wait. 1 minute. Yeah, okay. Can I?
There is no voice, ma'am,
Not
to the
yes,
video.
ma'am. Not able to hear.
Okay.
The video, oh,
Okay.
okay, the audio is not going through. Why
Yeah,
would that be? Why?
maybe on mute.
No, I can hear it. So I'm not sure why it's not going.
Sometimes
Okay.
Google Meet cannot be
Ayo.
permitted. Think so.
Oh, is that so?
Yes.
Okay.
You may try again.
Yeah, let me just let me try it again. Otherwise, I can maybe play it on YouTube directly and share. I'll share that tab, and then we can try it. We can try it that way. I mean, it's not crucial. Even if it doesn't play, I can explain what's happening in it to you. But it would be nice if you could. Let me see if I can play it on YouTube and. Play it in Chrome na baba. Oh. Oh, okay. Okay, what if... Okay, great. Okay, just bear with me. Sorry, everyone. Um, Let me just see if. Okay, so now I'm going to try and share a different tab with you. And yeah, okay. So please tell me if this is audible.
If you've never been lonely, you don't realise
Ma'am, audible.
what it is like.
It's audible.
It feels as though you've been dumped in the deep end and there's nobody there to rescue you.
Well, you go hours and hours and never speak to anybody.
I don't think you'll ever get used to it. You know, it's always loneliness.
How do you measure loneliness when even trying to talk about it takes your breath away?
The room's just empty.
"91-year-old Margaret Nicholas has lived in this house virtually her whole life, first with her parents, then her husband and family. 2 years ago, her husband died. Now it's just her.
We used to do the garden together, do our shopping together. Everything was done together.
You obviously miss him.
I do.
Yeah.
Margaret's granddaughter takes her.
Okay. So we did not go through the whole thing. I can share it with you later, if you want the whole thing. Very quickly now, if I go back to what I was talking about, non-verbal cues. If, for example, I were to say that you guys had conducted an in-person interview rather than conducting, like a questionnaire, do you think you would have been able to get more information?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. What all more would you have? What do you think you would have missed out in a questionnaire?
The body language,
Correct. Absolutely.
the facial expressions that is
Yes.
there in this case.
Correct. Yes.
Not
The
non-verbal.
emotions. The
Non-verbal emotions. Yes. Also, the ability to have a conversation. Right? Because when you are, let's say, sending out a Google form or something, normally what we do is we preempt the kind of problems and we preset the options, right? And then they can select 1 or 2 or 3 or all, but only out of what you have already provided for. Correct? At max, you may have 1 or 2 questions which are open-ended and that people have to fill out by themselves. But more than often, it is it is what we call as a structured closed questionnaire. Yes, have you done types of questionnaires in your quantitative methods? Have you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
We
okay.
know about it, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You know about it. Excellent. Right.
Yes, ma'am.
But yeah, so however, the drawback one can say of a structured kind of a questionnaire is that it does not give you an allowance to ask more or to say things like, okay, tell me more, or how did that make you feel, or these kind of open cues. Basically the kind of things that can come or that can result out of having a in-depth conversation with somebody. All right. And therefore for these kind of studies and these kind of analysis, where as a researcher, if you feel that there is a limitation on the kind of data that you can gather or the kind of inputs that you can get only via a structured questionnaire, or if you simply don't know enough about the topic to be able to even generate a structured questionnaire, right? It is very difficult for people of, maybe under the age of 40 or under the age of 50 to imagine what a 90-year-old person living alone feels like. You can't think about all the problems that they're possibly going through, right? And therefore, probably the kind of options that you will give in your questionnaire will be limiting, because you won't be able to, no matter how much literature review you do and background research you do and people you meet and then you make the questionnaire, even then you will miss out on certain nuances that probably these kind of topics would require. And so in these situations, we often then recommend that a qualitative approach is a better approach. Is this full screen for everyone? I'm not sure why am I not being able to go to full screen. Can you see full screen, guys?
No, ma'am.
No,
Ma'am, no.
why is it not going to full screen? I'm not. It says slideshow. Let me try slideshow again. Nope. I know even I can't say it. I don't know what's the problem. Anyway, if I leave it in this format, is it more or less visible to everyone? Yeah, are you being able to see the slides better now?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
You're not?
No.
Are? Oh, अच्छा. Oh, 1 minute. ये ऐसे क्यों हो गया? 1 minute. Okay, let me try that again. Why is this ribbon happening?
You're seeing infinity screen.
Yeah, I know.
Several images.
I figured that out. But was that happening right at the beginning as well? Wait, let me stop presenting and let me present again. Okay, let me just present the entire screen. Okay. Okay, how about now? How about now?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah?
We can.
All right. Okay,
Yes.
excellent. The only thing is I cannot see the main the Google Meet page. So if there are queries that are popping up in the Google chat, can somebody, I mean, if there are 2-3 that come about something that I'm talking about, can one of you just take the lead to, tell me to look at those or ask me to look at those? Yes, is that okay? Because I can't also look at the chat box simultaneously. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, that'll be good. Okay. Right. And so basically we therefore come to the need of why we do qualitative research and why not at all times quantitative research alone or a quantitative approach alone is not sufficient, right? So in a very technical definition point of view, your qualitative research is typically a form of a social inquiry that focuses on the way people interpret and make sense of their experiences and the world in which they live, right? And essentially is an aim to understand the social reality of individuals, groups, and cultures. So to basically give the researcher the tools and skills to be able to study individuals in their social settings in a manner which is more how do I put it, in a manner that allows them to know more, basically, right, about what is the subject at hand. All right, quantitative you all have done, so very quickly let's look at the differences between the two. Typically a qualitative analysis, the aim, like I mentioned, is going to be exploration of the participants' experiences and the life and the world in which they live, and to to generate a theory from that data or from those experiences that you gather. The approach is a much broader kind of a focus, a much broader area that we look at. It is definitely context bound. It is contextual in nature, and it has more to do with a one-on-one relationship with the respondents, right? So more than often you will find immersive studies, where people maybe go and live in a particular setting, or they go and live in a particular village, or let's say you want to do a ethnographic study, or you keep reading these kind of papers about people who have done an in-depth analysis about the kind of access to water, or access to bathrooms for women in villages, right? Now, one way to do that would be to just get a questionnaire, get people to find it out, fill it out. You'll get yes no answers, but will you really be able to understand what are the difficulties? Why are they facing these difficulties? Even within women, are there certain age groups, or is there a certain caste, or are there further dimensions that are being excluded? So to be able to study all of this, at times qualitative helps more. Okay, so you're understanding that there are always going to be some cases where quantitative will have its drawbacks, will not be able to give you the kind of information that is required for that kind of a subject that you are choosing to tackle. All right. Data collection, like I said, is going to be in-depth, non-standardized interviews, participant observations, field work, at times photographs, videography, documents, historical, paperwork or historical documents, right? All of this comes together in qualitative analysis, right? Because you can sometimes, maybe you might find old letters from somebody written to somebody, and let's say you're doing an analysis about a certain war, and you find letters written by a soldier describing the situation at that point of time. All of this adds to the context, right? But this does not come under quantitative, right? But all of these things add to the richness of the research that you're going to do, and therefore they are all accepted methods and means of qualitative research. Analysis, and we'll do this a little bit in detail probably in the second section. The analysis, you have various types within the qualitative approach. So you have one which is more typically used, is what we call the thematic analysis. You also have comparative analysis. You have grounded theory. You have an ethnographic analysis, like I just said, right? Ethnography, like the word mentions, is related to the ethnicity of the population. Demography is study of population. Ethnography is study of ethnicities, and so that's how you put it together. The rigor is of course going to be based on the trust that you build with the people that you are interviewing, or the people that you're doing focus group discussions with, and it's extremely authentic, and you sometimes are able to then generalize your findings to the larger ambit. Okay, so we leave it over here for now. All of this is in contrast to what the quantitative, but what the quantitative aim and approach and sample is, so I'm not really spending time on that. So moving on, in the qualitative research methods, we have a few approaches. Okay, so even within the qualitative, there are a few approaches that you can take depending on what is the problem at hand. Okay. So far, is there anything in the chat box that I need to look
add to
at?
join option hai. There is no any request pending from my side.
No, ma'am.
You can add to join. No problem.
Okay. All right. So the first approach that we see is what we call as a narrative. Okay, what do you mean by a narrative? A narrative is a kind of an approach that is essentially used when you are building context from a historical perspective. Okay, so it is somebody's viewpoint of that topic. So let's say if you're collecting information by going through interviews, or you're using old existing historical documents, or through probably books and personal cases that people have written down about themselves. So a narrative can be woven from all of these, like the information you get from all of these, when you put it together, often you see this kind of research that is done when you want to, maybe write about the historical kind of a transition for a certain um, sect of people, or when people. So this is typically also seen, let's say, when you want to. So you have a lot of work that is done about the natives in Australia, or the natives who used to live in the US, right? And then what's the only way to actually get information about them? Older material that maybe people have written about, or that people have jotted down, or you have documents that describe it. And if you do like a overall analysis of all the work that exists, and therefore you're being able to say something new, then that kind of approach is what we call as a narrative. Okay. The second approach in qualitative is phenomenology. Right now, a phenomenon, a phenomena, everyone knows what a phenomena is. So it's more based on the experiences that people go through, right? So the example that I've given is, if you have a researcher who's trying to explore the experiences that the family or the friends and or the people around somebody who's undergoing a medical treatment are going through, the only way to be able to get information about that is to actually talk to them about it. And what is it that they are explaining, or what is it that they are telling you? It is a certain phenomena that they have undergone, right? It is a common happening, or a common instance, or it's a common how can you put it, situation in which they were all in. And then their experiences, and if you talk to several such people, maybe within the same hospital or facing the same kind of a medical treatment, then all of that put together, that kind of an analysis is your phenomenology. Okay. So examples of this, real life examples of this is, so see, these days you have a lot of work and a lot of information
हेलो, आप
about
दूसरे कोड से जॉइन हो रही है।
how
मैंने
family
आपको
or
कोड
how
दिया
close
है, वो
loved ones
जॉइन
of
करिएगा।
cancer survivors can cope.
हाँ,
Or in your family, if you have someone who has got cancer, how can the supporting people also cope and adjust and live, and or maybe if someone's gone through an accident and has like had a life changing, maybe like an amputation or something like that, how do people around that behave or deal with it? Now where do these insights come from? Because somebody has done this kind of a review, put all those experiences together, like the best practices, and then they've published, and then maybe doctors and other people have read it, and now they practice it and they preach it, right? Every bit of information that is shared with you as as a given, at some point of time was discovered by somebody, right? You have to understand that there's research doesn't stop, and research is not limited to publishing papers and getting into academia and writing in journals and whatever. Every time you undertake a certain activity and you discover something and you share it with other people, and they in turn can use it and it's useful to the society, that's nothing but research, right? It doesn't have to be that it's published in a peer-reviewed journal or in a Scopus Index or something like that. If you get it, it's good, but it's research nevertheless. All right. The next approach that we have in qualitative is what we call as a grounded theory. Okay. A grounded theory is essentially what we call as a bottom-up approach of discovery. All right. So it's more of an investigative process. A grounded theory is more of an investigative process where you want to build a theory based on some ground data that already exists. Okay, so unlike an experimental research, you don't need a hypothesis over here to begin with. You already know the end result. You want to find out, acha, why did this happen? Okay, so there's no hypothesis building in this situation. And the example that we can use for that is typically, let's say you have a company with a very high attrition rate. What do you mean by a high attrition rate? What do you mean by attrition?
Employees are leaving the organization.
Correct, precisely. So for some random reason, okay, they're facing a very high attrition rate, and never in the past has this happened with them before. So they have no data for it, right? They have no pre-existing understanding for it. So now if you as a researcher want to find out what is happening, that is what you call as a grounded theory. You now want to, the end result has already happened. People have left. वो पता है. So there's no hypothesis building over here. There's no, oh, will they leave or won't they leave? There's no null negating the null alternative hypothesis. That's not there. What you want to now find out is via an investigative process, a bottom up approach of, okay, what could be the probable issues, or what could be the underlying reasons that led to this kind of attrition. Okay, and that kind of a qualitative analysis, that method is what we call as a grounded theory. Okay, so far these three are clear.
नाही रे, आज सेशन कुणीच हँडल केलं नाही.
Anyone can think of any
बोराटे सरांनी
examples?
दुसऱ्याला दिलं, तो नवीन आहे, त्यांनी मला सांगितलंच नाही.
Anything
त्याला
else
आत्ताच
that where you
दाखवलं
would
मी.
apply this? Any questions in the chat box? No. Okay. All right. The fourth type that we can undertake, or the fourth approach, is what we call as ethnography, right? Like I said, ethnography, the word derives itself from the word ethnic. So if you were to describe an ethnic or a cultural or a social group by observing them in their natural environment, okay? So let's say if somebody wants to do a study on the Nakshal region, right? Or if somebody wants to do a study on a particular section of a community living in the Konkan belt, can I do it sitting here in Pune? I can, but will it be the best kind of a study?
तुझं हे आजपासून जयंत मी काय परत करणार नाही दुसऱ्या दिवशी जेवण.
No.
Obviously not, right? Because you won't be able to get their real life, experiences. You won't get their lived stories. You won't get what are the problems they face on a day-to-day basis. Okay. Or, let's say the horrific tragedy that has happened in Wayanad, right? Or we ourselves had a similar experience in mind a couple of years back. Now, let's say if somebody wanted to do a study about the survivors and how they've been able to get back to life. One option is I sit here where I am in Pune and just read whatever secondary, material I get. I send one questionnaire on a Google from here. Only half the people fill it, and I do some study, right? But that's not really going to be helpful to anybody. Conversely, if I go to the town or I go to the city, I live with the people over there. I observe them in their, daily setup. I find out, okay, what is it that they're trying to do? How many people now have a job? How many people, what are the issues that they're facing on a day-to-day basis? Okay, are they being able to, do they have access to water? Do they have access to, your kirana? All of that. Living in the particular situation is a much better way of assimilating information. And the last approach that we have is what we call as a case study approach. So a case study approach is more than often used in more for a policy setting where you want to do an in-depth analysis of some real life situation, probably used in law, policy making, business. So maybe some of you, from the management studies might be able to undertake a case study analysis to further support the quantitative analysis that you are doing. So learnings from case studies can also be implemented because you can so let's say if you find a few case studies to support your argument, there is a chance that you can also extend it or it can have applications beyond the small group that you have studied as well. So you can generalize it to other situations as well. So let's say the example that I've taken is if you want to do a case study analysis about how a particular company turned around its product sales and the marketing strategy, then similar other companies could also, with a similar product, could also apply the same, could also try to do the same. Somebody wants to say something? Two people have raised their hands. I can take a couple of questions now. Ritanjali. You want to say something? Ritanjali, I see you've raised your hand. Rajesh Thoke. Yep. You've raised your hand. You want to say something?
No, just like that.
Oh, okay. And
You can
okay, so then
proceed.
you can put it down then, yeah. And same for Ritanjali, or do you have something to say? Do you have to contribute? No? Okay. All
I
right.
don't think so, ma'am.
Okay, fine, fine. No worries. All right. Okay. So are the five approaches clear, everybody? Can we move on?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah?
ma'am.
All right. All right. Great, great. Um, so now, other than the approaches, you also have what we call as the types or how data collection can actually happen under qualitative research. Okay, so when you decide that okay, given the nature of your subject, you will of course first try to find out what is the kind of secondary data that is available. Is it available? Will it actually help you? If not, if you decide to undertake primary data collection, you will then have to judge and see whether it is going to be a more quantitative kind of a data collection, or does your topic require a more qualitative approach. If you realize that a qualitative approach is more is going to be more meaningful, and you're going to be able to draw better kind of observations from a qualitative approach, then you will have to proceed with data collection under qualitative approach, right? So you have various data collection methods to be able to assess and understand what are the perceptions, what are the motivations, what are the respondents feeling about a particular topic, about whatever subject it is that you are studying. All right. So the first method of data collection under qualitative research is what we call as an in-depth interview or a one-on-one interview. Okay. So typically under qualitative in-depth interviews, even the structure of your questionnaire looks extremely different from a structured quantitative questionnaire. So in the first place, please understand.
Super Tina. Big boy. Lazy girl.
Excuse me. Can you please mute yourself, Professor?
Jayashri.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, ma'am. One question in chat box.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. How are the qualitative data collection different from quantitative? Yes. Yeah. So that's exactly what I was going towards. So see, a questionnaire design can be used for quantitative techniques or qualitative techniques as well. Okay. How you process the data that you have got defines whether you're doing qualitative or quantitative. Okay. A qualitative questionnaire or method of data collection is typically going to be a semi-structured interview with typically open-ended questions. So you don't give a yes, no, or you don't ask for, okay, on a range of 1 to 10, or you don't pre-assume and set the options and then they have to choose one or two out of those options. Okay. So when you do that, see, a questionnaire is a format to collect information. Okay. Now, how you're doing that will depend on whether it is a quantitative analysis that you're going to do or a qualitative. So typically a quantitative data analysis ka questionnaire will either have binary yes no options, or you can measure it on a scale, right? So you might say between 1 to 5 rank, what your options or how you would grade something, or you would say you would probably give ranges. Okay. So let's say when you're collecting information for income, for age, for height, for things that either you can have numerical values or you want to convert non-numerical into numerical. So if you are more than satisfied about something, give a number above 5. If it is less than, give below 5. So you are converting everything to data, and you want to process those numbers, and then the kind of tests that you will run on it are the ones that you have already studied in your quantitative hypothesis testing. Okay. However, if you have a open-ended or what we call as a semi-structured questionnaire, where let's say you just have questions which are completely open-ended. So things that are like, what is your opinion about something? Or how was your experience about something? And then you leave it open and you give, 10, 15 lines, and the people will just talk about it. And so the respondent will just talk about it, and the collector will then write down everything. So usually what we do is we record the conversations, and then you have to go back and you have to transcribe. And how we transcribe and then how we do the analysis is what we're going to be going through today. Okay. So rather than a yes no, you will have something which is way longer, in a long format kind of answers, where a lot more of information can be given from the respondent rather than you prompting the respondent towards a particular answer. There's a follow-up question. Is mixed approach useful? Objectives? Yes, your objectives will have to decide. See, more than often, I think, because you all are students of commerce and management, I doubt any of you will undertake a pure qualitative research altogether, right? But majority of the times, a qualitative analysis can be used to further support your quantitative findings. And of course, you can have both approaches, right? Your methodology does not have to be a this or that. Okay, your methodology essentially has to be something that allows you to come out with the best kind of findings. So let's say there is some kind of secondary data available. You have ran whatever tests on it, and you have been able to find some kind of an some kind of a result is coming out of that. And then you feel that, okay, but I want to further build my case and I want to strengthen my case. Or if you feel that actual real life scenarios or nuances or what people think about it or what experts in the field think about it, if that and what I'm saying also matches, it further backs my claim, then you can also conduct a qualitative research on maybe a smaller, like a case study analysis, or like a sample one-on-one interview of a smaller cohort. And then you say, okay, my quantitative also says this, qualitative also has similar findings, and therefore I have more weight to conclusively say whatever my findings are. So mixed approach is way better. Yeah. Two people have raised their hands. Is there something you want to say?
Yes, ma'am. Actually,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, if we have to prove some hypothesis, then is it necessary that it should be proved by quantitative data only?
No, see, typically you build out a hypothesis after you have figured out, after you have decided what your methodology is, now. Because you have your research
Yes.
topic, you have your objectives. Then you have to figure out, okay, now how do I achieve these objectives? What is going to help me? So if it is a purely data-based, there is some kind of secondary data that is available, and your research question is of the type that you want to prove or disprove, then you easily go for your hypothesis building, and you say that, okay, either you accept the null or you reject the null. But if the nature of your thesis question itself or your research question itself is to study the impact of something, or to study how the societal impact of maybe a particular scheme or something like that, it can have a mixed approach, because the data will tell you something, but you might actually want to survey the beneficiaries of the scheme to find out whether their experiences are matching what your data is saying.
Yes.
Yeah, so there you might go for a mixed approach. So maybe, I don't know, if some of you want to do something related to maybe insurance, or something like that, then there you can take probably both kind of like a mixed approach. So I think we can maybe finish this and a little bit more, and then I would like to know maybe what some of your topics are, so then we can actually see if there's some kind of an application that you can do with qualitative.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Yeah, okay, there's a follow-up from Krishna Dev. Which data type of data analysis is cluster data? Is quantitative. What in cluster do you plan to do? I mean, on what kind of data do you want to run a cluster analysis? Krishnadev, if you could unmute yourself. Chalo, theek hai. If someone can ask him to unmute himself, then I'll be able to understand what his question is exactly. All right, moving on. So of course, so the first type can be in-depth or one-on-one interviews. That's one format of collecting data for a qualitative research. The second is what we call as a document study or a literature review or a journal review or things like that. So a review of things that have already been written or have already been existing, or maybe you have historical documents that already exist, and if you're going to do a review of those, that is a secondary, that's not secondary, that's another type of data collection that can happen. So you have annual reports, you can have archives, you can have various documents, you can have policy documents. Okay, so let's say if you want to do maybe a study of the historical analysis of let's say something like development of Indian railways. Okay, so you want to go right into the records of your the British era, and you want to find out, okay, what were the policies, how did they pass it, why did they do it. So all of that document research is not really data driven, right? It's going to be more what the documents tell you, and it's going to be an analysis of that, and then maybe you find some more information and you compile it together, and then that's how you eventually find whatever you find. The third type is what we call as focus group discussions, right? You might come across FGDs, this terminology, right? Focus group discussions. So focus group discussions are typically in when you have a kind of a group circle interaction with people somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 people, not more than 10 to 12 in one focus group. And you are the moderator, okay? And you give a particular topic, and then people interact, and whatever those interactions are happening, you have to keep a note of that, because those interactions are going to give you a lot of information, and then you have to transcribe it out, and you draw out whatever is the analysis that you can draw out of that. Since this is a mixture of management students as well, if you all have, like, are you all MBA graduates doing PhD? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, excellent. So I'm sure you all had FGDs as a part of your admission rounds. Most of the MBA colleges have focus group discussions, right? So you have the interview panel, you have the FGD, and then your final result, right? So there, what the moderator was doing was basically keeping his eyes and ears open and trying to evaluate each and one of you on the basis of how you all were interacting and what you all were saying. So similarly, in an FGD, if you want to find out, again, if we go back to the same topic, access of, in a village, if you want to find out what are the problems that women have when it comes to access to common bathrooms or places for bathing, right? If you're having a focus group discussion with, let's say, 10 women, then whatever they talk amongst themselves about this topic is going to give you a lot more information, right? Because sometimes they are way more comfortable talking to each other and responding to each other than telling you something, because you're still an outsider, right? So that kind of a inhibition is always there. Okay. And the last type is what we call as a qualitative observation, okay, of collecting data. The last type is qualitative observation. Observation is basically you insert yourself in a particular situation and you simply assimilate whatever is happening around you, like literally see, hear, smell, touch, feel, literally you use your 5 senses to observe, to assimilate, to understand, and you draw out conclusions based on that. Okay. So a very basic understanding is, a very basic example is like, if you eat something and someone tells you to describe it, right? You don't need to talk to somebody to be able to describe that, right? You just eat it, you assimilate it, right? When you eat something, you eat with all your 5 senses. You touch, feel, see, hear, and taste, right? And you can describe. Okay, that's a very simplistic example, but basically an observation is also one way of gathering data, and it's a perfectly accepted format of gathering data in a qualitative research. More than often, you will find the first 3 being undertaken, and even more than that, it's FGDs and one-on-one interviews. Okay, these are like the top two formats used, especially in, let's say, either economics or finance or commerce or management. Like other social sciences tend to use more. So let's say if somebody is doing a PhD in history, the qualitative analysis bit will definitely have a lot more about like literature review and document reading and things like that, because it's inertly the subject is like that, right? So between social sciences, there's a lot of variation in how people use qualitative research. Different techniques are more applicable to certain sciences as compared to others, right? Okay, any questions so far? Yeah, okay, we have Akshay. Sometimes losing voice because of poor network. Is everyone having this problem? Am I not audible?
No, ma'am, you're clearly audible.
No, ma'am,
Okay,
you are
okay.
audible.
Audible,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay. So Akshay, then maybe you can try logging out and joining again. It seems to be a problem at your end. Okay.
Yeah, ma'am,
Uh,
I did that. Yeah.
oh,
Thank you.
okay. Excellent. Good. Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, let's say I am collecting database for Starbucks reviews or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
first I will target for a focus group qualitative research, right?
Okay.
So I'll interact with the students, I'll interact with the professionals, and I'll get the database about Starbucks.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the bigger industry like automobile industry and kind of such
Yeah.
focus group would really work, or how it is?
So in that situation, like I said, you should go for a mixed approach. So you would probably take whatever secondary data or whatever quantitative data you can get, and you run your analysis on it, and you will get some kind of outcomes. And maybe then you do a much smaller sample for either one-on-one interviews or a focus group, or in your situation, depending on what is the question. Okay, so let's say if you want to find out in the automobile industry from the manufacturing end, if you have a question that's from the manufacturing side, okay, maybe you want to find out costs of manufacturing, or maybe you want to find out that what is the impact of a certain change of the government policy on production of automobiles. If it's something like that, you could then maybe have in-depth one-on-one interviews with the line managers. Those are fewer people now, or with maybe the owners, or maybe with the production head. वैसे. So the data will definitely tell you, okay, has production increased, has production fallen, has sales increased, has sales fallen, has cost of factors of like the cost of inputs, has that increased or fallen. You will get data for all of that. So you will be able to run some tests on it and you will find some outcome. But for the more nuanced things, nuances which are not always captured by data, if you take one-on-one interviews maybe with production managers or line managers, or maybe even ground staff like actual laborers and workers, you will get some more in-depth qualitative information about how this process is happening or how the impact is, which maybe the data is not being able to capture. So in this situation, you can do a mix of both. So it completely depends on which side of the problem you're looking at.
Okay, and also the size
Yeah.
of my like sample size is matter, right? Let's say for focus group, we can't just reach out to 1,000 people.
No, yeah, correct. So in qualitative, typically they are smaller sample sizes because you're spending a lot more time per person. So weightage per sample is a lot more than what you have in a quantitative kind of a questionnaire. So if you are simply going to circulate a questionnaire and you have, these binary yes, no, or a scale or those kind of questions, then the requirement is, you probably need to get 200 questionnaires filled out for you to be able to conclusively say something about the topic. Just suppose. But the same thing if you were going to do in-depth conversations, then probably even 20 suffice.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in qualitative, typically it's understood that your sample size is going to be extremely small, because you could even, so let's say like an immersive study, right? If you're doing an ethnography study, and if you're going to go and stay in the village for 6 months, then the fact that you're staying there for 6 months or 3 months also gives you so much richness about the surroundings and how people are interacting and all of that, that even if you have actual conversations with only 10 people, that is still more than enough for you to conclusively say something about that topic, because you have also a lived experience of that area. So the benefits are very different. How you can gauge and how you can write and how you will be able to extract actually what is happening. You have a lot more ability than you would had you just sent out a questionnaire. Na? So hence the sample size in qualitative, it's perfectly accepted if it is, and in fact, it is always small. You can't in-depth personally interview 100 people. It's not possible. So you might not even find 100 people facing that same problem. That can also be a problem sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
All right. Good. Anything else? Anyone? So far, any other question? All right. Good. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So let's take this one quick case study, just for you guys to understand. Now the answers are also there in front of you, but I just want you to be able to process how it is that you would think about a particular situation. Okay. So the topic per se is understanding student experiences in online learning. Okay, so all of us have gone through this entire pandemic, right? And professors, like, we were teaching online and students were learning online, right? So post the pandemic now, if somebody wants to undertake a study of what was the experience like, what were the problems they had, what did they like about it, what did they not like about it. So the background for the case study is, with the increasing prevalence of online education, institutes are interested in understanding the students' experiences in virtual learning environments. And the participants are tasked with, so you guys have to design a qualitative study to explore what were the challenges, opportunities, that, the overall experience of the students. So you first have to formulate a question, related to student experiences with online learning. The second step will be to choose an appropriate research design. Okay, so will you do a grounded study? Would you do a case study? Would it, be phenomenology? What would it be? Okay. The third is then, what would be your data of collection be? What would be your method for data collection? So would you do interviews? Would you do focus group discussions? Would you do online observations? Right? So let's say when the classes are going on, you ask to participate as a silent observer in those online lectures, and you take down, whatever the interactions are. And then, of course, lastly, you also need to discuss what are the potential limitations and how, they might enhance the validity and reliability of their study. Okay, so this is how you would undertake this kind of a case study. So you would first have to formulate what the question is. Then you need to figure out what kind of a research design are you going to stick to. Once you decide the research design, you then have to decide what would be the method of data collection that is the most appropriate for you, depending on what kind of access do you get, in what setup do you think students will be more willing to participate and give you answers. A focus group discussion might be better, or you might also want to do a focus group discussion with the teachers to find out what they think about the students' learning experience. That can also give you certain insights, right? So you need to structure all of this out before you actually undertake your study. Okay. Is this clear? Any doubts about how you would typically think about the process, or how you would process your question?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Great. All right. So typically your steps are essentially your qualitative data collection. So either you have one-on-one interviews, you have your notes. Okay, so in one-on-one interviews, typically it is recommended that you record it. If the respondent is not comfortable with a video recording, you can do an audio recording. whether video or audio. And now I'm jumping a little bit and I'm going to the ethical considerations, because everyone understands ethics of research. Have you all done ethics of research? Has it been taught?
Not in the coursework, ma'am, but in research methodology we have studied it.
Okay, excellent. Attendance link. This is not for me, right? The attendance link thing you all have to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. Right. Um, so see, typically the ethics of research, and I would say it's a little more crucial that you understand it while talking about qualitative than quantitative, because when you are having an in-depth conversation with somebody, it is very, very important that you understand that their privacy needs to be protected. People are not very comfortable in sharing information if they think that their name, their address, where they live, who they are, becomes public knowledge, right? Because there is always this fear of what would people say? Maybe what I'm saying is affecting somebody else, so I don't want to tell people that. Okay, maybe you're asking an employee about his employer. So these kind of things are very complicated, right? So so you have to be very careful about the ethics in this. So even if you're going to record any conversation, be it video or audio, you explicitly every time have to take permission of the respondent. You have to tell them that in nowhere, wherever the data is used, will their name or any personal detail ever be disclosed. And only once they agree to that, once you've explained everything to them, so you have to explain the research topic, you have to explain where it will be used, whether it will be published or not. You have to explain that their name, identity, age, whatever, any other personal details will not be revealed. And then you have to explicitly take permission for recording, either video or audio. These 5 things have to happen. Without that, you cannot even start any interview or any focus group discussion. Okay, these ethical considerations are extremely important, especially in qualitative. Okay. Um, okay, so then once you have your entire interview, let's say you have 10 in-depth interviews. Next, what you need to do is what we call as transcription. Okay, transcribe basically means if you have the audio recording of the interview, you have to write out verbatim the entire interview. Okay. Along with that, you also have to write out what we call as field notes. So field notes are general observations that the researcher does over and above the interview. So let's say if I have gone to a respondent's home and I'm taking his or her interview, I will make notes about what was the house like, okay, how many people were there. It may not be directly linked to your topic, but it might give you some insights about why the person has that kind of an opinion. Or, okay, it might tell you something about their surroundings. It might give you a hint about their income. It might give you a hint about their social relations, their social standing, a lot of different things, right? Their financial situation, a lot of unsaid things that you get information about. So those are what we call as field notes. So other than what is being recorded, what is the question answer kind of a conversation that you're having, other than that, whatever you observe is also to be written down, because they add richness to your findings. When you can describe that entire scenario in which that conversation took place, it gives the reader, the reader of your research, it gives them a lot more in-depth understanding of where you're coming from. Okay, so these are important components. All right, so I think before we move on, yeah, so we'll be moving along to thematic, content analysis, narrative, etc. But I think maybe we can break the first session. Ma'am, is it time?
No problem,
Or
ma'am.
yeah. No, so then if we have a couple of
Scholars
minutes.
have doubt or problem?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what. So I wanted to take time for that. So can you tell me when we break before the next session? So then I'll interact with them for that much time.
Scholars, do you have any doubts about related to the topic already discussed?
Yeah.
Please ask to ma'am.
Yeah. Any inputs or doubts, or if you have started working on your topics and you have your research topics and objectives, then if you could share some of those, that would also be great. Any of you feel that there is some kind of qualitative work that you can undertake? Any
Yeah,
ideas?
madam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in my case, my topic is analytical study of related to automobile industry, analytical
Uh-huh.
study of and digitalization and sales augmentation of automobile industry in Maharashtra.
Right.
So this is what my topic is,
Uh-huh.
and for that, qualitative research, like I'm going to target managers and managers and CEOs to get the information about how they are not selling their product via digital platforms, and
Right.
how can we do it when it comes to the improvement for automobile industry. Most of the automobile industry sale is offline, so why they are not choosing this option to online. So this is what my topic is all about. So in
Okay.
my case, when it comes to the qualitative research and data analysis and all, so
Yeah.
I will be targeting certain cities like Mumbai, Pune, Nagar and all
Mm-hmm.
nearby cities where the
Right.
automobile sale is very high. So
Mm-hmm.
my question is, when it comes to the consumers, let's say somebody is buying SUV. So when it comes to the consumer, what type of question that I should be, focus on? I should like target for which type of question for the consumers?
Okay. So what is the information you want from the consumers?
Like let's say, are they buying e-vehicles, and what is their preference when it comes to e-vehicle and
Huh.
normal petrol vehicles, and kind of.
Right. Okay. Okay. But no, but how are you going to link this to whether or not, I mean, why online sales are not happening?
Yeah, actually, I'm collecting both the database from managers and from customers, and then I will be doing data interpretation that this is what it should do. Then sales will be increased and all. So I just need a data collection from consumer perspective as well as a primary and secondary both.
Huh. So you also want to interview consumers to find out whether or not they will be willing to buy online?
Yes, yes.
Okay. 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 Fine. So in that case, now see, Akash, I feel you will have a part of your questionnaire is going to be fairly straightforward and quantitative in terms of, let's say, what kind of car preferences do you have, or you know, okay, so what you can do is you can have a semi-structured questionnaire where probably the first half of your questions are typically, in the range of yes, no, or like a scale, or you know because let's say if you want to give them an option of the kinds of types of car classifications, and those already exist now, there is nothing ambiguous in that. So you have your MUV, SUV, whatever, hatchback, sedans, and those exist. There is nothing that an opinion you can have on that. But the second half can be mixed, okay, of the nature where, so let's say if you want to find out whether people are willing to buy an EV or not, or invest in an EV or not, the following question can then therefore be, if no, then why? And you can ask them to elaborate on what all are the reasons that they feel that they would not want to buy an EV. Because it's not as simple as, so one thing can be the price range, second can be the recharging charging points and all of that, third can be that people have a lot of perceptions about the batteries and explosions and all these things that happen. So you can have multiple considerations over there. So that's one point. The second is about the online sales part. There I feel maybe you can have what you could do is, so you have your sales outlets, like your major sales outlets in all the cities for every company.
I'm going to figure out that.
Ha. So let's say you pick up for Hyundai, or you pick up for Honda, or Maruti or whatever. In every city, they always have one dealer who is like the highest seller, like, or grosser. So if you can
Yes.
get that data now, you can have focus group discussions with all of such dealers. That
Okay.
if it goes, see, because I'll tell you, there is going to be a big hesitancy. So I just want to understand, are you going to work with companies or with dealers, like manufacturers or dealers?
Dealers.
And then why will dealers want it to be online? They will lose their entire, I mean, dealers will only not exist, no, if companies can directly sell
No, no,
online.
not dealers. I'm going to work with the manufacturer basically. B2,
Correct.
B2, yeah.
Correct. So you are proposing basically direct from manufacturer to consumer.
Yes.
Right. So you can maybe still speak to some dealers. Okay. This is like background.
Yes. I'll do that. I'm going to do that because their survey is also important in this case.
Exactly. Just to even find out that, forget he, of course, I mean, it's a direct loss for them if it goes directly online. But what do they perceive as, see, because something like a car, no? And this is a little bit where behavioral economics, you might want to read a little bit about behavioral economics as well. As the worth of the product increases, people have an inherent bias of looking, touching, feeling before you buy.
Yeah.
है ना? So nobody is going to buy a car off Amazon. You don't
Yeah, that's
mind
true. But
buying
you know,
small.
digitalization, they have not, because everyone has
Yeah,
accepted the digitalization, and this
it's true.
car industry, automobile industry has still not yet,
Not yet done. But
manufactured.
yeah, but I also feel it's a little bit also from the consumer side, like a bias that you're not comfortable buying. Like how you wouldn't rent out a house that you live in by never looking at it in person. Would you just see photos on No Broker and pay the rent and then directly shift? It's that's the
Depends.
mentality I'm saying. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
typically, so larger the amount, like bigger the stakes that you're investing, there is that mentality, which still probably people who are, let's say, 40 and plus still have, because they were not born with the digital era. है ना? They have experienced digitalization later in life. So probably if you survey kids who are now in their 2025, they'll be willing. So you might get different answers from different age responses. It might be really interesting, yeah, to look at that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Very good. All the best. Anything else? Anyone?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
actually, my topic is the impact of travel aggregators on the performance of travel companies. And the objectives I'm following there, I have to find out the performance of the travel companies. So can it be qualitative as well? Like I have quantitative measures to find out how they are performing, whether it is good or not. But
Yeah.
how qualitatively I'll go for that?
Um, Qualitatively, you could look at possibly consumer feedback and consumer retention. So, essentially how many repeat clientele they are getting
Okay.
from the same, yeah, because that would speak volumes about the consumer satisfaction.
Okay.
If they have, so that also you will get data for. But if then you can interview the people who are repeat clientele, maybe in a focus group, you will get more nuanced answers about why they keep coming back to maybe this particular aggregator and not somebody else,
Okay.
which will be experiential. What are they, what kind of services are they offering better? Maybe they have better tour guides, maybe they have better timings, maybe they take them to better places to eat. Because if you look at data, people will say, do you provide a meal? Yes, no. It is going to be yes, no. You're not going to get qualitative answers about,
Yes.
how people like it or don't like it, which is what they base their decisions on. So you can find information on repeat clientele, which aggregators definitely have.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you can do a focus group discussion of them and ask them pointed questions about, what do you like better? What are the, let's say, top 5 features about this aggregator, and why do you keep coming back, and why do you prefer them to somebody else? then you will be able to, I mean, that will add value to your recommendations part.
Okay. Thank you.
As in, best practices for other people to follow, something like that.
Thank you.
Welcome. Anything else? Anyone?
Anyone has doubt or problem related to the session, or anyone related to his or her research? I think no, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. We will join on 4 o'clock.
At 4 o'clock, yes. Perfect.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's the new link, right? There's a different one
New
at 4.
link I had given.
Yes, yes, yes.
You can leave now, no problem.
Yeah. Thank you.
Scholars, you can leave now. We will join again on 4 o'clock.
हॅलो अर्चना मॅम.
हॅलो.
मॅम ते लिंकवर अटेंडन्स मार्क करतपर्यंत ती क्लोज झाली होती, म्हणजे अगदी 1-2
हा, काहीच
सेकंदाचा.
नाही करू शकत आता.
तर
एकच
आपल्याला म्हणजे
मिनिट,
असं
एक मिनिट. अटेंडन्स डाउनलोड कर.
मॅम रेंजचा पण इश्यू असल्यामुळे 5 मिनिट
स्क्रीनशॉट
पुरत
टाकला त्यासाठी 53 लोक ऑनलाईन दिसतात आणि रिस्पॉन्सेस 69 आहेत. काहीच करू शकत नाही त्यासाठी मी आता.
नाही, म्हणजे आता आम्ही तरी
कारण काल
प्युअरली अटेंड करतो.
मी टाकत होते व्हॉट्सअपला, पण तो माझा गैरसमज होता की तुम्ही सिन्सिअरली करताय. तर ते सिन्सिअरली नाही, व्हॉट्सअपला आलं की चला मी रिप्लाय दिला, माझा अटेंडन्स लागलं. काहीच नाही करू
आता
शकत.
आम्ही तरी sincerely
काहीच
करतोय
करू
ना.
शकत नाही, सॉरी. एक दोन ठीक होते की अगदी 4-5 ठीक आहेत. ड्रास्टिकली चेंज आहे ना.
बट आता आपण जे प्रामाणिकपणे करतात त्यांचं नुकसान
आता
होतं
मी
ना,
काय
असं
करू
होतंय.
शकते सांगा मला. आता काल मी बरोबर टाकलं, लोक म्हटली मॅडम व्हॉट्सअपला टाका, आम्हाला इथे जमत नाही. व्हॉट्सअपला टाकलं तर त्याचे परिणाम उलटेच आहेत. काय करणार मी तरी. त्यासाठी मी मेन्शन केलेलं होतं की ह्याला टाकणार आहे, गुगल चॅट बॉक्समध्ये मी टाकणार आहे. काहीच करू शकत नाही मी. तुम्ही स्क्रीनवर असाल व्यवस्थित तर ते मेसेज आलेला पॉपअप होतोच, वरती दिसतोच आपल्याला, नो प्रॉब्लेम. काहीच नाही करू
जनरली
शकत.
मॅडम जेव्हा मोबाईलमध्ये आपण वापरतो ना, तर ते इतकं प्युअरली म्हणजे नाही करता येत, जसं की आपण लॅपटॉपवर वापरू शकतो.
काहीच नाही करू शकत, सॉरी.